Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Rob. And I'll apologize for the delay in starting this session today. As Robin mentioned, we have had some technical difficulties. If you were expecting to see former Senator Pat Roberts from Kansas, he's having some technical difficulties with his laptop, so I'm going to be stepping in today to moderate the panel. Today we have a session on global challenges and local solutions to transforming food systems and getting results in a global environment. On behalf of CropLife International, CropLife America, and the Global Global Farmer Network, I would like to welcome you to this session. As the United Nations has gathered the world in 2021 with an ambition to transform global food systems, and as it becomes clear that we are not on track to meet the 2030 Sustainability Development Goals during this decade of action, it is more vital than ever for a variety of farmer voices to be heard in these discussions. It looks like Senator Roberts has just been able to join us, and I'm not sure whether he'll be coming on right now.
No, I'm sorry, Mike. He has no audio right now.
Sure. For today's session, we will have a variety of discussion from our 4 farmers from around the world, talking about the challenges they face around their farm, everything from climate change and soil health to biodiversity and regulatory issues and trade issues. This session will include videos of their farmers talking on their farm and recommendations for solutions that will help transform food systems in a meaningful way for farmers, the environment, and the planet. Let's first start off with the first video from Lana Cook, who's a farmer in Canada.
Hi, I'm Lana Cook, and I farm with my husband Jerry Hertz at Edenwald, Saskatchewan, Canada. We farm in Western Canada. We're grain producers, oilseed producers, and we also grow pulse crops. So the types of grains that we grow are wheat and durum wheat. We grow canola and flax, and we grow peas and lentils. We operate a sustainable operation here on our farm by having access to all the tools and technologies that have come to the forefront in the industry due to innovation. So we use the best genetics for our seed to ensure it's got resilience against any climate stressors, any insects, any diseases. We use crop protection products like seed treatments to ensure that the seed has the ability to germinate properly and then produce a good crop. We use pesticides to protect against crop diseases, to protect against insects, and of course weeds. And we also use fertilizer, just the right amount of fertilizer in the right targeted area to be able to maximize the production of the crop using the right rate at the right time in the right place. All of this leads to our sustainable operation. Now, when I think about sustainability, the kinds of things I think about when I think of that word is, I think about safe and nutritious food. I think about farmers being responsible in their operations. I think about having resilience in the crop to be able to meet the changing climate and to meet the climate stressors that are always coming at us with extreme weather, heat, drought, too much moisture, that kind of thing. I think about us regenerating our soil, ensuring that we have healthy soil and we leave things better for the next generation here on the farm. And I also think about transparency in our farms to make sure that we build public trust and maintain public trust so that the public understands that we are producing sustainably and using responsible approaches to be able to produce safe, healthy, nutritious food. Now, one thing that I would like the public and people involved, for example, in food companies to know is that farmers are producing healthier, more nutritious, and more plentiful food with less than ever before. And this is because we have access to all the modern tools and technology. This ensures that we have the absolute least impact on the environment as we produce that healthy, nutritious, plentiful food. We have this targeted approach, as I mentioned, with our genetics, with our crop protection products, with our fertilizer, and making sure that we're making the most of the moisture that we get. Here in Saskatchewan, we're in the middle of some pretty dry farmland. And with all of these tools, we can ensure we can still each and every year produce a very good crop. The other thing that I want to mention is that we've got access to, really excellent equipment. So in our case, we use minimal tillage or a zero tillage approach, which means we disturb the soil the least amount that we can. This preserves moisture. This ensures that the quality of our soil is maintained in a very healthy way. It ensures that there isn't soil blowing around, so we don't have an air quality problem. It ensures that we don't have water running off of tilled land, and it ensures that we've got minimal impact on the environment. So this more crop per drop, this more resilient crop production is really what sustainability is about, and I really want people in food companies and the public to understand that. And through continuous improvement, we're going to get better and better through innovation, through this focus on always reducing our environmental impact while maintaining the ability to continue to farm, of course with fair profitability as well, because we need to be able to maintain our operation with some economic sustainability in order to continue to operate. By having access to all the modern tools and technology, farmers can sustainably produce healthy, nutritious, and plentiful food that is affordable. Misguided or misleading marketing approaches for food products puts this at risk. It could mean that those vital tools and technology are taken away due to non-science-based decisions made by regulators, by governments around the world. And it causes consumers to feel needlessly anxious about their food. The reality is food is safer than it's ever been. It's nutritious, more nutritious than it's ever been. And it's more affordable than it's ever been. We need to have the ability to maximize food production and minimize impact on the environment, and we can only do that by using all the tools and technology that farmers have available to them. And in this way, we can ensure environmental and economic sustainability. We know that food companies are looking to have, specific characteristics in their food, specific ingredients. Farmers can meet that challenge. We can do it because of science, because of innovation, because of our adaptability and are willing to adopt these new technologies. Please allow us to do this. We know we can feed the world sustainably. We need to be able to do that by having access to all the modern tools and technology that are available to us now. Don't put that at risk. I hope you found this interesting. Greetings to you from Saskatchewan in Western Canada. From our farm here, where behind me is a beautiful crop of wheat growing for this year. Thanks very much for listening.
Hey, Lana, how are you?
I'm good, Michael.
Good. Thank you very much for that video. I appreciate that. I really love the fact that you're in the field with the dog running around. It's really beautiful to see. You covered a lot in that video. A lot of the things that are kind of the topics and themes of this entire session. You covered in that. So of all the things that you've talked about, what do you think is the biggest challenge or the biggest point that you want to get across to our audience today?
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, the dog added value to the video, I think. I realize that, I think a lot of the public would think that the things we worry about on the farm would be related to production or the weather, or even labor, or a lot of these things that are very operational. Frankly, I think the number one thing that I worry about on the farm is policy. And I worry about policy getting in the way of allowing us to be able to operate, use sustainable practices. I worry about policymakers, taking away our tools, taking away the technology, standing in the way with regulatory barriers. So, I think what's really important is that governments have in place good, rigorous regulation that is science-based, that is stable, that allows the industry to understand, what rules are we playing within, what rules do farmers need to follow, but don't tie our hands, don't force us to make decisions a very science-based regulatory system. But I worry about some of the reviews of some of the current technologies, for example, and some of the pesticides that we currently use. Those are really important tools to allow us to operate sustainably, because you take some of those tools away, let's say some of the seed treatments that protect our seed when we put it in the ground. You remove that technology from us, it means we're going to have to spray more. It means we're maybe going to have more tillage. This is a concern for us. And then the other example here in Canada is right now the Canadian government is thinking, we're not sure where it's going to go, but they're certainly examining the idea of bringing in a policy to reduce fertilizer use by up to 30%. This would be a massive impact, really devastating for us to be able to sustainably produce. So what we're trying to do is produce more with less. You take away the tool of fertilizer, we're not going to be able to produce as much, and it means we need more land to produce the same amount of crop that we're producing right now. So policy is my number one worry on the farm, and I know that maybe sounds crazy, but as a regulator, as a farmer who once served in government in the role of the Deputy Minister of Agriculture here in Saskatchewan, it's very real to me that governments have a role to play to be involved as enabling industry and farmers, but not to overreach.
Thank you very much. I think that is going to be a running theme across the planet for some of the farmers that we talked to today. I do know that we're running a little bit behind, and I think that some of the panelists and maybe some of the audience is having some audio issues, but I think we're going to press on. One last question for you, Alana. Trade is incredibly important for agriculture in the prairie provinces, just like it is for the Great Plains states in the United States. How can trade help improve the environmental, social, and economic sustainability of your farm? And how does trade play a bigger picture on your farm?
Well, trade is really vital. I mean, here in Saskatchewan, we're the most trade-dependent province in Canada. We have over 40% of Canada's farmland here. We're very productive. We absolutely have trade to be able to, have a market for our products. Otherwise, it would be a waste of resource. Having rules-based trade, science-based trade allows us to, as I said, maintain access to tools and technology, make sure we can use sustainable practices, allowing us to have products that can be exported around the world based on those science-based rules. And, I think from an environmental sustainability perspective, that's really key, is that it be science-based trade rules. From a socially sustainable perspective, it allows us to make sure that, for example, we provide employment in our economic region. We support communities. Us having prosperity and the ability to trade our goods with here in Saskatchewan, we export to over 100 countries in the world. This allows us to create prosperity not just on our farm, but in our region and for our province, for taxpayers. So that's got social and economic sustainability connected to it. Saskatchewan's one of the world's largest exporters. Well, we are the world's largest exporter of peas, lentils, wheat, canola, flax, mustard, oats. We didn't have the export market, we wouldn't be producing food for the world. And this is also connected very much to social sustainability. As what would the world do if we weren't exporting all of that food to them? So I think I'll leave it at that, Michael.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. As I mentioned, we're running a little bit behind because of the technical difficulties, so we're going to move on to the next video. Up next, we have a shorter video from Alfredo Gutierrez, farmer in Mexico.
My name is Alfredo Gutierrez. I'm a fifth-generation dairy farmer. As an agronomist, one of my mainly objectives is the production of crops, especially forage for the cows, like sorghum, corn, barley, wheat, ryegrass. Our main objective is to keep and preserve all natural resources like water, soil, like using a specialized technology. For example, specialized machinery, the use of drones and weather station. All of these to produce high quality forages, to produce high quality milk.
Hi, Alfredo. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. It's helpful to kind of know what you do and what you're talking about and how you farm. Knowing, given that you're a dairy farmer and you are kind of in charge of the crop section, you, I think, can provide a kind of a larger perspective on some of the agriculture that is going on in Mexico. The first question I wanted to talk to you about is the fact that the Mexican government seems to be making some very strong decisions around biotechnology and pesticide use that some of the farmers that we've been talking to, especially some of the farmers within the Global Farmer Network, are not in support of. And it also may be having an impact on trade. Are you concerned about the availability of innovations and technologies that you need for your operation, both on the crop side as well as on the dairy side?
Well, yes. Here in Mexico, the prohibition of biotech and some chemicals is not affecting directly our production because they are limiting the tools to produce food, and it just is starting. If this keeps going, certainly they are going to have to get more and more chemicals, leaving us without tools to produce, which will lead to an agriculture like we were in like 1950s. Especially, we don't have access to BT corn. Right now, there's a huge movement to glyphosate, to ban glyphosate from Mexico. And according to our government, to 2024, we have no longer glyphosate or Roundup. So that's really difficult for us. They are keeping our weight tools, so making us to produce a lot harder with higher costs, and it's really a big concern. But unfortunately, we as farmers, we cannot do anything because I think that the wrong people are sitting in the big chair. So it's gonna be really tough years. Hopefully, it will change in the next year. So let's see what happens.
So what will that mean for you in the short and medium term? And we don't really know the long-term effects because we don't really know what decisions will be made. But in the short and medium term, how will that have an impact on your ability to farm and the sustainability of your operations?
It will affect directly because in case of the ban of Roundup or glyphosate, we will have to use more agrochemicals, different agrochemicals, maybe more machinery. So we are going to, it would cost a lot more, like more chemicals, more machinery, more labor. So our profitability will go down. Many farmers will have to shut down, I think. So yeah, it will be really tough years next year in Mexico.
I talked a little bit to Lana about the issue of trade. How does some of these decisions coming out of your government affect trade, both from an import as well as an export matter?
That's another really big issue. We depend on the imports and exports. Mexico exports a lot of food, especially like fruits and vegetables. But for animal feed, we need to import almost everything. Soybeans, corn from the US, canola from Canada. So we need to stick to those agreements, and we need to get better agreements so we have availability to all of those feeds, to all those inputs. Unfortunately, like I said, the wrong people are sitting the big chair, so we have to struggle with that the different years. And for us, like farmers, especially for me, like we produce milk, our crops are more important than ever, because if we don't have access to those imports, we have to produce more with less.
Mm-hmm. And as as you lose the ability to import the food for your animals, will that cause an increase in price for your operations? And if so, will that have an impact on food security for the Mexican people?
Yes, actually, we are having a lot of issues right now because our government's trying to. They want to be like auto-sustainable to grow, especially corn, but we are not sufficient. So we have to import a lot. So this year our cost has going higher, and many people are, like I said, it's going to shut down, or we are struggling really hard. So I don't know what's going to happen.
So if you had to say one thing to the leaders of your government that will kind of to tell your story or to tell them your concerns, what would you say to the leaders of your government to try to resolve some of these issues?
Please hear us. We know how to do things. We know how to do things the right way. We know how to farm the land. We know how to grow crops. We know how to produce animal feed. Please let us do that and hear us, because they made the agreements and the trades sitting in the chair and they don't know anything about farming. So that's the real big issue. The wrong people are writing, and everything in the paper is really good, but in the reality, in the farms, everything's quite different. So please hear us and let us do our part.
I think that's a great message. I think for all policymakers, as Lana mentioned, that the policy is the big issue facing a lot of farmers, and I think that farmers around the world would have very similar things to say. Just listen to us, take our advice, and let us do our job. Yes, thank you very much, Alfredo. I appreciate that. Moving on, we're going to be going on to the next video, which is a video from a farmer in Uruguay, Gabriel Caballal.
Hi, I am Gabriel Carbajal, a farmer from Uruguay, South America, and I belong to the Global Farmer Network organization since 2012. I am farming more than 3,000 acres in the southwest part of Uruguay, and I believe in a regenerative agriculture, in a positive agriculture, where the impact is good for me and for the environment, where I can catch CO2 from the atmosphere and fix into the soil, where I can leave a better soil at the end than the soil I found when I started. That is why you can see things like this in my fields. No-till in 100% of the area, high carbon crops like this corn just harvested, cover crops in all the area where no winter crop is being planted, and a great system of nutrition for these crops. We want to improve the environment. We want to improve the soil. We want to have something better at the end than the beginning. And that is why we are so convinced in what we are doing here. Crop rotation is really important for us too. It's really important for our system. In this case, for example, we have a first crop corn with a cover crop planted before corn harvest with an airplane. Then we will plant a first crop soybean, then rapeseed. After that rapeseed, a second crop soybean, and after that another winter crop like wheat or barley. And after that wheat or barley, we will plant probably a second crop corn. So all that rotation system, plus the production system we are using, which is no-till, plus the nutrition of each and every crop, creates a healthy system which improves the soil. And for me, if the soil is happy, if the soil is healthy, I am happy and I am wealthy too. For me, it's very important to tell this story because I know that one farmer by itself is not going to change the world. But if we all together know this technology and know that we are doing well, we can probably make something if we work together in this. For example, here you have a corn crop, right, which yielded more than 7 tons per hectare. After, a barley crop, which yielded more than 6 tons per hectare. If we think in all the carbon we fixed from the atmosphere to the ground, to the soil, improving the soil, at the same time we are improving the environment, I think that's incredible. So telling this story to the rest of the world, telling this story to the farmers and taking it is really, really important for me. And that's why the Global Farmer Networks, for me, is a great organization.
Still sounds like we're having some audio
How are you?
issues. I'm good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I love that in your video you talked a lot about some of the issues that the public may have some concerns with, and I do apologize if we're having a little bit of connectivity issues here. So just in advance. You talked a lot about soil health. You talk a lot about no-till agriculture. You talk a lot about crop rotation. All things that people, say the general public or the people who are criticizing agriculture, saying that we would be doing. And you talk a lot about those things in your video. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of soil health and some of these other issues on your farm?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome.
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, we started with no-till back in the 80s with the idea of finding some solution to erosion. That was our goal at the beginning. And then we found, after starting with this production system, we found a lot of advantages which tend to improve the soil, right? The idea was having a healthier soil that improves our production. So we put a little spicy on this system after knowing it, like using cover crops, like using GMOs, precision agriculture, and collecting a lot of information, which improved even more this system, which allowed us to have a more resilient production system with the ability of farming in places where we were not doing in the past, and with the ability of growing crops without destroying the fields. That was the first goal, was not destroying through erosion, but we found that we were not only cutting erosion but also improving the system. That was amazing, and we are also improving the environment, and we found that fixing carbon, as I said in the video, from the atmosphere into the soil and keeping there through no-tilling the soil, through organic matter increasing, well, that's incredible. That's what I call a win-win-win situation. You can improve your production, you can have a happier soil, and you can have a much better environment. That for me is incredible.
Yes, I mean, it definitely seems like you're having a lot of success on your farm with the innovations, the technologies, and the techniques that you're using. What would you say to people around the world who may not have access to some of those techniques or those the tools that you use? I mean, what kind of things would you wish that others had access to?
Well, we usually put barriers in front of us when we don't know a technology, right? What I say is, you know the technology and you try to apply, maybe through all machinery or through all techniques you might have already, and you will find that this is, for me, a great solution for several things. Resilience, sustainability, those are major improvements using this kind of technology. So it's more in here, the problem, the barrier, is more in our heads than in the actual solutions we might find around us. When we started here back in the 80s, in the late 80s, we had no machinery adapted to plant in a no-till system. We had glyphosate was like 40 times more expensive than now. So technology was not on our side. Technology was against us. And what we did is well, let's try to take this to where I want to go to achieve our goals. And then the results were so far better than everything was done all itself, right? So if you have no technology, for example, no machinery suitable for no-till farming, well, probably there's a way of converting that machinery to a no-till planter, let's say, to make it possible.
Yep, exactly. Appreciate that. So I think that everybody on this panel is innovative, and they're committed to best practices in agriculture and care deeply about the land that you're going to be passing on to future generations. Is this common, or is this kind of adapted by a lot of the farmers in your area, or are you kind of the pioneers of these types of techniques? And hoping that others, even within your own country and region, will also be adopting?
Well, a number that shows that is in Uruguay, no-till adoption is above 90% of the area. So I could say all Uruguay is under no-till systems, which is great, because when my father started, my father was one of the founders of the National Association. They were called like crazy farmers because everybody else saw them. They were looking for something undoable, right? And now Uruguay is above 90% in adoption, so that's great. Here in this country, Argentina, Brazil, no-till is a reality and is in most of the areas. There are other countries, especially in Europe, where this technology has not been adapted. And I believe it's a major change, but I believe also it's a major improvement, especially to the soil, which is where all our system is based. So it takes, as I said, some mind changes to adapt our. We have been doing this since ever. Why changing right now? Well, I believe the results pay the effort.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And actually, it's a very good transition. Thank you for teeing that up for me, because our next video is from a European farmer. Next up, we'll have a short video from Danish farmer Knud Beismith.
Hi there, my name is Knud Beismith, and I'm a farmer from Denmark. Our farm is a purely arable farm on which we grow cereal, oilseed, legume, and sometimes some grass seed. I joined the Global Farmer Network in 2017 after I had followed their work on the internet for some years. I really like the idea of sharing knowledge and having insight in rural life across borders worldwide. As a farmer within European Union, am I on one hand blessed with a relatively stable market and infrastructure. For me, is the stability the most important value of the European Union. Historically, there have been many conflicts in Europe. But on the other hand, it's my feeling that the European Union is going backward now, at least with what is related to agriculture. EU's new Green Deal still wants us to promote old-fashioned extreme tillage as the solution to today's hot topic. We refrain from the use of any sort of gene technology. We are still stuck in repeating the same old mantra about this breeding tool. The use of no-till is struggling to be accepted as a practice that can contribute to solve some of the challenge that is on the agenda these years. We are a small group of farmers in Denmark who is practicing no-till, and none of us would like to go back to the plow again. Hopefully the fact will support us, and the concept will be seen as a part of the solution to handle some of the challenge food production leaves. Anyhow, then I still believe that there is room for farming in Denmark based on common sense.
Hi, Knud. Thank you very much for that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much for that perspective. It's one that we don't necessarily always hear in the larger scheme of things. You've been farming since 1987, and you have seen a lot of changes in agriculture over the past 35 years or so, in the direction of GMOs, lots of changes in crop protection tools and other inputs, digital technology, and more. How has agriculture within the EU changed compared with the rest of the world?
How it will or how it has?
Well, both, I guess.
Okay. How it has, I mean, it has, particularly within the use of gene technology, we have deselected that for 30 years now, which means that we have been without that benefits which could have contributed to a lot. And even one thing is what it could have done with those crops who is available, but the next thing is, or the most important thing is what it could have been if it has been available within crops that is more traditional here in my part of Europe, Northern Europe. One can only guess. So in the future, if we still keep that policy, which it seems like we will with the Green Deal, we will just be even more left behind. That is unfortunately how I see it.
And what do you think, are there options in farmers in other countries that you wish that you had in your country and the rest of the EU? And conversely, what are some of the techniques that maybe you wish farmers around the world would adopt that you're currently using in the EU?
If we start with what farmers around the globe could use from Denmark, not so much from the rest of the Europe, but as I see from Denmark, it should be better education, basically better education of farmers. That would definitely improve a lot worldwide. There we could contribute from Denmark, I'm sure. And what I'm missing is, as what I'm starting with, is simply the better breeding tools, which only the fantasy can imagine what it could lead us to. And then knowing that a part of the Green Deal is talking about less use of pesticide and more self-sufficient with protein. And I can't see we can reach that goal without also using a newer breeding technology. Otherwise, it will take us several generations to reach that. So that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So with the issue, Farm to Fork, the Green Deal, heading for being discussion right now in Europe. We talked to Gabriel about passing his farm down for future generations. How do you feel about being able to pass your farm or agriculture for future generations in Europe? Is the face of agriculture going to change, or what do you think will agriculture look like in Europe over the next 30 to 50 years?
Yes, hopefully not like the worst scenario in case the Green Deal is being implemented as the goal is, because then it will be a working museum here in Europe, but some people in Europe find that we can afford to have the rest of the world to supply us with food, because we will be less and less self-sufficient with food for sure. And passing on the farms, I mean, there is a lot of land being taken out of production in Denmark, so there will be less and less farmland to pass on as farmland. Of course, the land will be there. So it's a little bit egoistic to the way we farm in Northern Europe, as I see it. But hopefully that common sense will overtake, and it won't be as bad as it seems from my point of view.
Sure. So what do you think your hopes are on that? I mean, what do you think the odds are on that? I mean, are you hopeful that you'll be able to get these things? Or are you a little bit more pessimistic about the future?
it's strange, but you know, just before this new crisis with higher energy prices and so on, I was fearing that it was going that way. But I think that with this wake up call from, you know, with particularly energy prices, which means higher fertilizer prices, will hopefully open the eyes of the politicians that we can't just live in this illusion. We have to produce something here in Europe as well, and then just be better to do it without leaving too much impact. That is for me the way to go, instead of shutting everything down.
Sure. Yep, makes sense. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left of the call, and at this point, I think I'd like to invite everybody back up onto the screen to share their cameras, and hopefully we will actually be able to get Senator Roberts on the call as well, for him to be able to provide some closing thoughts and talk about a little bit about his what he would have talked about had he not had some technical issues. So, Senator Roberts, will you be able to join in? Right now you're on mute. All right, looks like we may have lost Senator Roberts for that. So now that I have everybody back together, if he comes back, we will certainly toss it back to him. But for the sake of the audience, I do want to keep this conversation going. One question that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, but I kind of wanted to get a bigger perspective, is kind of your thoughts on climate change. You know, with COP26 coming up.
It's here, not here.
So it sounds like we have Senator Roberts on audio, but not on video right now.
Yes, can you hear me now, Michael?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but I think we would love to hear your thoughts on this. And so if you can join us, absolutely, please go ahead. There you are.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm sorry for all the glitches that we went through. I think that was an excellent presentation. The thing that strikes me about all farmers, all producers, regardless of crop, and now it's very evident all across the world, that amazing in terms of innovation and resilience and optimism. The farmer would never put the seed in the ground, regardless of the crop, if he or she did not think that they were going to have a crop, regardless of what governments do, regardless of what the green situation is, which in many cases is very counterproductive. This has been a very interesting webinar. As a chairman, both in the House and the Senate in the United States Congress and the Agriculture Committees, it's been a real pleasure to listen, especially to all of you, and answering your questions. I can't remember which one said, well, what we need is a lot of common sense. I think that will come as the price of food keeps rising because of the COVID situation all the way around the world and the supply chain problems that we've had. But I've been very impressed. I want to ask Lena, if you could tell me the name of that beautiful dog that you had there in that lovely wheat field.
His name is Buck. He's a good black lab, good farm dog.
It looks like a great dog. I think Knut really hit the nail on the head. Here we have no-till. We've had no-till in the United States ever since 1996. Why on earth just a few farmers have banded together and said, we're not going to use the plow anymore, it's not needed. You know, we can do our business very fine without that. The question I would have of him, what's the chances of that happening?
You mean to get the plow back or continue with no-till?
Yes, to continue no-till.
It is. It's funny to say, but luckily the science is behind us with tillage means decomposing and then letting the carbon to the atmosphere, and so far is the only herbicide available is glyphosate. So it's like you can choose between tillage, which means decomposition of the soil, or you could accept a few liters of glyphosate per hectare per year. So I think the common sense will leave us with the glyphosate, but it will be a long emotional debate for getting to there.
Well, what I don't understand, and I think that's probably the biggest problem, is that the number one issue, or one of the number one issues we have in the United States, is carbon sequestration. That is nothing new. We were talking about that several decades ago, but we did not get to the situation where now it is the number one item, trying to figure out what part does the federal government pay, what part does private enterprise play, and then obviously what part does the producer play. Right now it's in a state of flux, but it is the most popular thing to achieve in the eyes of folks who are really paying attention to this, the kind of progress we can make in taking more carbon out of the air. What I think the simplest thing to describe is carbon in the air bad, carbon in the soil good. The problem that we have here right now, there are about 8 or 9 conservation practices that you can employ, and then they would be authorized by the federal government. And then, but to date, we have not seen how that's going to work. In the meantime, we have had a great number of industries already pay farmers for carbon sequestration, trying to get ahead of the game, if you will, and some more than others. And so that's going to have to be worked out. I would imagine, hopefully, that we could do that in at least a year's time. And I would hope in each of your areas that we would have the same kind of cooperation where they would, what is it, wake up and smell the roses, or wake up and smell the no-till. Actually, there's no smell to it. But anyway, thank you very much for this international look at the same problems that we're experiencing all over the world. The key to this is that we always say we are producing the best food that we possibly can for our own countries, but also for a troubled and hungry world. And that's doing nothing but getting more serious. Maybe that is the answer if we can really focus on that and say this is the way we can do it best. And then with the help of CropLife and people on the really on the edge of change, and CropLife I've been associated with now for, gosh, 40 years. And they've always been right on the cusp in terms of helping farmers, ranchers, and growers with everything that that has come at us with regard with the challenge. I wish you all the very best, and keep doing what you're doing. You're wonderful examples of not only what you're doing, but your country as well. And I don't know, Knut, maybe I'll have to come to Denmark and talk to your legislature.
You will be very welcome.
Thank you, Michael, for conducting, I think, a wonderful webinar. I apologize for the glitches. I won't go into that. It's a good thing that the sound wasn't on.
Yes. Well, Senator Roberts, I mean, we do have a little bit more time. If there's more that you'd like to say, or more questions that you'd like to ask the people, we can go over a little bit since we did have the late start. We may drop some audience, but since this is being recorded, certainly we can provide video for people later on as well if you'd like to continue on.
I would like to ask all of our wonderful participants, in your view, what is your number one problem? And number two, if you have an answer to that problem, or what you think would be best to do that, why don't we start off with Elena?
Thanks, Senator. Well, at risk of repeating myself, because obviously on the farm we have lots of challenges related to, marketing, technology, all kinds of production challenges, weather variability. But as I said earlier in the discussion, I think my number one concern on the farm is policy. And, this is misguided, misinformed, non-science-based policy that I fear sometimes governments are tempted to move towards. We've been fortunate in Canada that certainly the province I live in and to a certain degree, even our federal government has taken a science-based approach to policy. But I do worry about some of the signals we're seeing on, non-science-based decision-making. Certainly some pressure from consumers because maybe we in agriculture haven't done our part in explaining what we do and why we do it and how interested we are in being sustainable and regenerating our soil and using the best practices because of innovation. And so this pressure from consumers maybe has pushed governments to make wrong decisions. But I really think governments need to have good policy so that we can sustainably produce crops for the world.
Thank you, Gabrielle. You're next. What do you think is the number one problem that you're facing, and then what's the answer? We have sound science, and then also the policy of governments to recognize that sound science.
That's right. That's right.
Please.
I agree with Lana in terms that policy is the main problem here too. We have facts that we know are true, but some people it's not based on science when they take decisions, and that's a big problem because they make decisions based on fears, based on thoughts, and that's no good. I always believe in science, and I believe that the science is proving something. We have to follow that way. So I would say policy and the way some other people is facing agriculture is the main problem. That's why I always say that the farmer must go and tell their story, because it's the way of telling what's happening today, now in the farm, and telling the other people how it works and why we do something and what we do to make them understand how is it going on here in the farm.
That certainly is an ongoing challenge. Alfredo.
Hi, just like Gabriel and Alana said, it's policies. The wrong people are making the laws and they don't hear us. So that's the main trouble we have.
And wrapping up in fourth place, but my no-till person here, Canute.
I probably just repeat the three others, but basically the biggest challenge is to work out which way the wind is blowing. One thing is what you hear when you follow on the social media and what the goal is, which is the climate change. But then living in the European Union, back to the Green Deal, I mean, we don't walk the talk. We talk a lot about what we do, but we walk in another direction. So it's very contradictory with what the goal is and what the tools we are using to reach the goal. So that is that is the challenge. But how to solve it? I hope that science will support us. I hope common sense. Otherwise, there's only the hard way. That is you know, if the poorest part of European folks cannot afford the daily meal, I know it will change. Then we are going back to produce food for affordable cost with less impact and not just a little story. Yeah.
Well, Michael, I think, and then all of the panelists, I want to make sure you understand that the very same summary of concerns is shared by every farmer, rancher, and grower in the United States. We obviously have a lot of territory as well as Canada, but it's always amazing to me the ever-present job of trying to educate a very urban population, plus all of the activists involved, just on the basics of farming and what makes sense, and then if you can possibly apply that to sound science. Right now, we are in the midst of something called the Green New Deal, and it doesn't have. These things don't have to be at odds. They can be commensurate. We all could be headed in the right direction. Michael, thank you so much for having CropLife sponsor this. I think this is very educational. I think this is going to really get a lot of attention, certainly in the United States, but also worldwide over. And thank you to you all, and bless your heart. Good luck. If you need rain, I hope you get it. If you don't, I hope you don't. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Roberts. Appreciate that. Thank you for all of our panelists for today. And to all of the attendees, we'll be sending out a link to the video on YouTube once it's available. And I would like to thank everybody for joining. And if you're continuing on with the World Food Prize events and some of the other Borlaug Dialogues activities, good luck for the rest of the week as well. Thank you very much for joining us today.